But today's session is going to be about post-tax season playbook, or it is the post-tax season playbook. So basically, kind of going into depth on some of the tactics and strategies that you should be considering and employing for yourself as well as your business, even after tax season has passed. I think that this is something that people don't necessarily consider or aren't at the forefront of their minds just because it all comes down to a couple months, but there are some strategies that you really should be employing to make sure that you can receive maximum deductions, and really make sure that you kind of stay ahead of the game there. And we do have our amazing CEO and co-founder of Mileage Quest as our guest speaker today. So she does have extensive tax prep history, has been with a tax organization that she actually, has co-founded herself as well for, decades now. So some really informative and insightful, information will be coming forth. All righty, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you, Rochelle. So we would love for you guys to connect with us on LinkedIn. We post a lot of informational, aspects of Mileage Quest. So any app updates, of course, things that are happening with the MQ&A and the team overall, events that we're going to. So make sure to connect with us on there. We'd love to, connect back and make sure that we're all up to date. All right. So jumping in, first slide, please, Rochelle. So, Tamara, kind of drawing on your experience in tax prep, can you discuss the impact of poor or improper record keeping when it comes to small businesses?
Yes, indeed. And first and foremost, I do want to greet everyone and thank you, Jim. It's great to see you on board with us today. There is a host of information that I trust you'll find valuable and be able to share with your sphere of influence. All right. Yes. So, as far as poor record keeping is concerned, that is a challenge for every company. It doesn't matter how big or how small, everyone experiences has that experience to one degree or another. But as it pertains to the record keeping associated with, say, tax deductions for individuals and or companies, it is real. And you figure, per the information noted on the slide here, it says that 1 in 4 small business owners overpay taxes due to disorganized financial documentation. And that is a fact. Now, my husband, who happens to be not only my partner, he's the managing partner of our accounting firm, and he also serves as CFO for Mileage Quest. Back in, I'd say about 10 years ago, when we were closing down tax season, we often just visited with each other and asked how could we best assist our clients in working their way through tax season. And gathering data is difficult. I mean, to the extent where uh, clients would actually come to us with shoe boxes full of receipts. And of course, that's not overly efficient. And the disorganization of that is going to prevent companies from really maximizing not only their tax return and maximizing what they're paying or not paying to their staff if it is pertaining to mileage reimbursement. But with that statistic there of 1 in 4 small businesses overpaying in taxes, it really does boil down to disorganized or inaccurate record keeping. Additionally, as far as manual tracking is concerned, a lot of companies have not employed a sophisticated system to allow their staff to manage their mileage tracking in particular. There's a lot of human error associated with that. People not purposely or perhaps even purposely, transpose numbers or they leave valuable information out on their reports. So the manual tracking piece, that's not overly good. We're very sophisticated now in these day and age, in this day and age. So as far as employing uh, platforms like say a mileage tracking app, which Mileage Quest is, you figure using something that's automated like that is going to ensure that the documentation is accurate and it provides the necessary information to reimburse properly as well as submit to your tax preparer when it's time to file for tax returns. And then additionally, at the bottom, we're showing that QuickBooks itself had reported that 67% of small businesses only review their financial processes once a year. And that's not overly, helpful to companies because everything changes. I mean, we're moving a mile a minute. Technology changes practically every quarter. So you figure 67%, I mean, that's a very large percentage of companies that are missing out on maximizing all of the necessary information to ensure that their cash flow is proper, to ensure that they're meeting, proper uh, regulations, staying in compliance. So the cost of poor record keeping, it is definitely a concern. It's an ongoing concern, but we have to do what's best and talk to others and find out what best practices are available for us to, make those changes.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the times it's just not at the forefront of their mind, right? So all of these kind of pitfalls, they might happen, but they might not see them as actually affecting their overall business strategy and their overhead, right? So kind of looking at this
Exactly.
from a more quantitative perspective, like how do these bad, habits, you kind of affect the business overall?
Well, there's a lot of time that's being wasted. And unfortunately, it is a reality. You figure looking at the data here, time wasted on manual entries can be incredibly high. The average time spent is 4 to 8 hours a month when it comes to either tracking your expenses manually or the time it takes for, say, your HR or payroll department to review that documentation. And you look at the annual time loss, we're looking at 48 to 96 hours a year, which equates to 6 to 12 work days. That's a lot. And then the cost of time. If you're paying your staff, say $25 an hour, you're looking at between $1,200 to $2,400 that's lost in productivity because of the manual activity. I mean, that is a lot of time for someone to review reports and make inquiries, have clarification. I personally have chicken scratch for penmanship. So, for someone to ask, oh, what does this mean? And, the transpositions of numbers and things of that sort. Yeah, it's a lot of wasted time there. And then inaccurate and incomplete logs. So the error rate in manual logs, we found that it's 25 to 30% that contain errors. And again, it's not perhaps intentional, that there's a transposition of numbers, but not being able to, uh, you know, read someone's penmanship because you do need to have exact information such as addresses, the to and from locations, the purpose of the meeting, and things of that sort. So if you have errors, it's a red flag and it could end up costing the company. And then potentially the tax deduction loss. On an average, business drivers could see in upwards of 15,000 miles a year, which equates to $10,500. So not sure what you could do with $10,500 on an annual basis, but that's lost. And 20% are underreporting, which means there's a $2,100 loss there. So whether you're an individual or a company, if you're not gathering accurate information, you're either leaving money on the table or paying too much. So those are some hidden impacts.
Absolutely. Could you actually go a little bit more into depth, specifically with the administrative hassle and the compliance risk that is associated with doing this in a manual way?
Absolutely. So recreating logs, that is going to be more than a notion. Okay, so if you're living in Southern California in particular, which is where we are, driving down the 405 freeway is harrowing in itself. So if there's an opportunity for being redirected on your route, okay, so now you're having to remember, oh, I made this stop, or there's traffic, or the GPS system had you rerouted, things of that sort. Uh, when you have to recreate a log and remember, oh, yes, at the 405 and say Hawthorne Boulevard, there was traffic and I was rerouted. So just trying to recreate all of that information is, it really is more than a notion. Okay. And then as it pertains to the IRS audits and penalties, we're looking at up to $250 per missing entry if there's incomplete or inaccurate information. So not only are you getting, you know, punched in the tummy because you didn't have accurate information, that is a red flag for the IRS. They are very, very strict when it comes to documentation when you're preparing someone's tax return. And even the state of California, your respective state, not everyone lives in California, so I won't be general like that, but your state, they have their criteria as far as what is considered reimbursable and what isn't. So the employee reimbursements, that's a audit risk because say you have a team of 20 sales team members, right? Okay, that's a fairly large team that you're having to manage, especially when it comes to mileage reimbursement. If you're not documenting your information correctly, then and you're overpaying the staff or you're underpaying the staff, now you're opening yourself up to possibly a lawsuit. We don't want to do that, right? We don't want to position ourselves to be in the court of law trying to represent documentation that could have been submitted erroneously. Okay. And then the cost of inefficiency for businesses. So companies with mobile workforces, they spend an average of 50,000. Let's see, they spend an average of $50,000 plus on annual mileage reimbursements. Okay, so remember, I'm talking about a team. If you have a team of 10, 15, 20 even sales individuals, we're looking at 50,000 plus per individual on mileage that takes place on an annual basis. And then look at the study here at the bottom of the screen. Studies show that manual mileage tracking inflates costs by 10 to 20% due to estimation or fraud. And where fraud may be or may not be intentional, the fact of the matter is, if you're in a position to document anything manually, again, we had to look back at what I said previously when it comes to transposing numbers, not being able to, uh, you know, identify exactly what the details are on a particular document. And you're doing this on a per pay period basis or on a monthly basis. That's a lot of backtracking that you're going to have to do. Okay. And it's also noted here that businesses are overpaying by $5,000 to $10,000 per year per employee. So when you think about this quantitatively, that's a lot of exposure there. Okay, so those hidden losses, they are real, and companies need to look at best practices to mitigate all those expenses.
Absolutely. And kind of jumping into best practices, actually, can we discuss what Mileage Quest is and how it can be a solution for these businesses that are currently going through some of these pain points?
Certainly. Okay. So as I mentioned, my husband, who happens to be a CPA, we've had our CPA firm for 34 years now. It was just about 10 years ago when we were trying to just decompress, from tax season. And we were having the conversation of how can we best assist our clients in gathering their data? Because not only is it encumbering of their time, it's certainly encumbering on the tax preparer's time if the data isn't readily available or if it isn't organized properly. Okay, so we decided to go into the tech space, and that happened about 4 years ago. Mileage Quest was founded back in 2021. And at that time, we had a host of individuals, not only CPAs, but tax preparers, come on board and provide their 3 cents on what they, in their practices, look for as far as assisting their clients in better practices. And we created Mileage Quest. It's a smartphone app that assists individuals that use their personal vehicles, and it is personal vehicles, mind you, for business travel. So not only is Mileage Quest valuable when it comes to tracking your business miles, but also for medical and charitable even miles. So tax reimbursements can happen if we have proper documentation. Companies will reimburse, certainly here in the state of California. They are mandated actually to reimburse their staff for mileage. And what better way to stay within the laws by having something automated like Mileage Quest? It's tied to your phone, it talks to your calendar, and it also talks to the GPS system, whichever it is that you use. It could be MapQuest, it could be Google Maps, or even the app in your phone. But Mileage Quest it's an incredible tool to automate the process of gathering the necessary documents to ensure everything is correct. And you won't have to worry about those red flags.
Absolutely. Can you actually go into detail on some of the additional benefits that businesses would experience if they employ a Mileage Quest, kind of just outside of the convenience aspect and the compliance?
Sure. Okay, so the tax deductions, I mentioned that a couple times already, and you figure um, when you're reimbursing your staff, the great thing about that is that it is non-taxable to the employee. Okay, it's non-taxable, so that means it's part of the compensation package that you um, offer them when they're coming on board as an employee. And it's wonderful because now in 2025, the rate is 70 cents per mile. It had been hovering around the 55-cent per mile mark in the past, but they increased that rate this year to 70 cents. And when you're, again, looking at the compensation package that you're offering your employees, that could be significant. Excuse me. And you figure employees are able to, pardon me, employees are able to take a look at their trend and see, what they can garner as far as reimbursement is concerned. If they're putting in, say, 1,200 miles a month, then they know from a trending perspective what they're going to receive back, and it's non-taxable, which is awesome. And then there's the tax deduction for the company itself. So as it's noted here, the accurate logging of employee reimbursements ensures that they remain tax-free for the company and are fully deductible as business expenses. So it really is a win-win. The company wins, the employee wins, and it's something that a lot of companies haven't taken into consideration, even though in the state of California, again, it is required that they reimburse their employees for mileage. And then there's the fraud prevention piece of it. The accurate mileage tracking helps prevent fraud by providing verifiable records of employee travel, ensuring that only legitimate mileage is reimbursed. Okay. So not only is the app great for the business purpose, but it is also beneficial when you're active in charitable work. Say you're volunteering for the United Way, and they have a variety of events that take place. So, provided that you do have proper documentation, I keep saying that, and I want to really drive that home. It is proper documentation that is needed in order to qualify for those benefits. But unfortunately, with fraud being as rampant as it is, companies are having to take that hit because through manual documentation, anyone could really embellish the amount of time that they're driving in their vehicles, the destinations, and things of that sort. So that's one of the greater benefits of using something automated like Mileage Quest.
Absolutely. Can you actually go into depth on the benefits when it comes to optimizing your business?
hmm Yeah. So again, we're looking at how can we streamline the workflow. Okay. So if you're looking at a particular department and we're going to that 20 person sales team that I mentioned earlier, that's a lot of people to keep track of and all of the documentation that they're required to have in order to be properly reimbursed, right? Okay, so employees and supervisors are going to spend a fair amount of time reviewing all that manual documentation, and Mileage Quest assists in streamlining the process because of the reports that we're able to generate. And then there's the improved cash flow management. Those are the IRS compliant reports that are going to be fully documented, or it fully documents all of your information. It's in a streamlined process. It's in a beautiful format. So there's no questions. It really can't be refuted, the information that you're submitting. Those reports are they're quite itemized, and it covers all of the points as far as what the IRS expectations are concerned for proper, tax deductions and reimbursements. And then there's the data-driven protocol. Okay, so there's automation allows businesses to set travel guidelines. Say if you are going on a holiday, okay, of course you don't want your phone to necessarily track your mileage. So you can move the toggle over. We have a feature there. It's called vacation mode. So that data-driven protocol is going to allow the user or subscriber to, customize the app so that it meets their needs and it doesn't provide any information that they don't want their employer to have access to. So, it also reduces unnecessary trips. Unnecessary trips meaning I'm going to the supermarket, and that's a personal activity. Okay, so maximizing cost efficiency is certainly something that we took into consideration in developing the app because we are CPAs and tax preparers, so we know what to look for.
Exactly. And I think that's what's something that's so unique about Mileage Quest is the perspective that the app was created from. You guys had firsthand experience with these sort of pain points, and you guys were able to make a system and a solution that totally attacked them, kind of right on that first base. So I'm obviously a huge fan of Mileage Quest. And as we kind of close out, thank you so much, Tamara, for all those insights. I did want to give just a couple more details on the actual functionality of Mileage Quest. So we kind of have four pillars that really support the streamlined workflows that we're talking about as a benefit. So first, of course, is that automatic tracking. So something super unique to Mileage Quest is that we operate in the background and we have very sensitive triggers that actually know when you're getting in your car and starting to drive. So when the app is actually taking in that information, it's very specific in terms of when you're actually starting and when you're stopping. So this, of course, adds to the accuracy of all the reports and all the data that it's gathering. So there's a few ways to do that. Of course, automatically. You can do it manually as well, and then through calendar sync, which I will get into in just a second. But something also really cool is the ability to classify your trips, right? So a lot of other apps tend to just consider your business mileage and your personal mileage, but we actually consider charitable, medical, personal, and commute as well, because you never know what sort of hidden tax advantages you can uncover if you have those insights. I think having data and having information is of the most importance, right? Making sure that it is supported and IRS compliant is equally as important. And so that's something that we wanted to put into the Mileage Quest app. And you can see it right there. There's very little descriptions that comes directly from the IRS to show you what each trip can be segmented from and classified as. And then my favorite feature is the calendar sync. And so basically we can digitally integrate with any of your calendars on your phone. So whether that's Outlook, Gmail, Google, Yahoo, anything of that nature, and it'll pull in the events that you had that do have a location, and it'll sync into the Mileage Quest app. And so this just adds another level of automation so that you don't have to go in and actually toggle and put any descriptions there. It pulls that right out from the calendar, and then you're able to save that trip and have it be generated in those reports. And then we do also have a few different IRS compliant reports. We have the mileage reimbursement report that does replace your traditional manual log, but we also have your tax report and vehicle reports as well. So this is just a comprehensive overlook at all of your driving habits. And, it's really, really important to have these because then when you do go to your tax preparer, they can see, okay, this is what your driving habits are. You can, make more informed travel decisions or financial decisions when they consider, your travel habits. So really, really great. And I think there's so many different aspects that users can benefit from the app as opposed to just the convenience. So really, really cool. We do have some demos and other information where you can see the app in its entirety. And that will be sent to you guys after the call in an email with some additional resources. But just to close out, next slide, please. Yes, so we are currently currently on all devices, so iOS and Android. So there shouldn't be any issues with onboardings, especially since we do work with a lot of company-wide staff that have multiple devices. So we really wanted to make sure that we're on both platforms to make sure it's accessible for all you guys. And then if you are currently on the Mileage Quest app, just make sure that you have your in-app notifications turned on as well as your automatic updates. We're consistently rolling out new features and upgrades to make sure that the app is working as best as it can be. So we want to make sure that you guys are using it in its most up-to-date state. So just make sure that you have those pinged. And if you do have any questions or need any, support from the team, then please make sure to go through the contact tab within the app, or you can visit our website and make sure to contact us through there.